The senator from Kansas.
Mr. President, thank you for that emphatic recognition. In the next few minutes, the Senate will vote on the Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson honoring our promise to address Comprehensive Toxic Act of 2022. This is a significant, I would say historic moment. This bipartisan legislation, not only is it significant and important because of the content, but it's also significant and perhaps historic because of the cooperation that has been that has garnered to put this act together and presumably pass it and send it to the President of the United States. This bipartisan legislation is the most comprehensive toxic exposure package the Senate has ever delivered to veterans in our country's history. Generation after generation, Americans, one by one, have answered the call of duty with the promise that we, the United States of America, the citizens of this country, would take care of them and their families after their time in uniform. Yet, generation after generation, veteran after veteran, these service members returned home only to be met with a piecemeal process as they worked to cobble together the care that they earned and the benefits they deserved from the Department of Veterans Affairs. Veterans have spent years fighting bureaucracy to get the care they need. And sadly, there are those who've been fighting up to this point who are no longer living to receive the benefits that this legislation will provide. Chairman Tester, the senator from Montana, and I made a commitment to get to this point today, and I'm proud that we are doing so together in a way, and most importantly, this bill will deliver health care and benefits to thousands of veterans who are ill due to their exposure to burn pits and other toxic exposures. There's no doubt that the cost of taking care of our veterans is high, but the truth is, freedom is not free. We say that. This is evidence that we believe that on the passage of this legislation. There's always a cost to war. It's always high. It's always dramatic. It's always something that costs people their lives. But we make a decision when we send those servicemen and women to war that we're going to do what we said we were going to do and care for them. The decision is made when we send someone to war about whether we're going to spend money to care for them when they return. The cost of war is not fully paid when the war is over. We are now on the verge of honoring that commitment to Americans, veterans, and their families. Back home in Kansas, Major General Lee Taffanelli said this legislation, I quote him, will have a great impact in the lives of our veterans long after their service. The knowledge of the obstacles formerly in their way have now been streamlined, will provide peace of mind as our veterans move on with their lives. I spoke in Memorial Day in a cemetery in Kansas, and a Navy veteran came up to me after my remarks and said, I served in the Navy, my dad served in the Navy, we both encountered toxic substances, and we're fortunate we have no symptoms that they caused any problems in our lives. But that doesn't mean we don't think about it every day, that what happens if we do have those consequences in the future and there's nothing there for us and, more importantly, for our families. This legislation helps provide some level of certainty. I'm sure every member of our service, when they serve our nation, recognizes they run risks. But I doubt that any of them believe that they are creating risks for their spouses or their children. They share the burden, they carry the burden for themselves, but there is also the necessity of caring for their families, particularly if they get to a point in which they cannot do so. Not only will this legislation provide long overdue health care and benefits to the 3.5 million post-9/11 veterans who were exposed to burn pits, but this legislation will deliver care for all generations of veterans, including Vietnam veterans suffering from exposure to Agent Orange. I'm at an age in which it would seem like The Vietnam War was a long time ago, and we would have taken care of those who served. But we have those who served in Vietnam who are still waiting for their benefits. The Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson PACT Act would not be on the floor today without the hard work of numerous veteran service organizations, veteran families, survivors, advocates, and the veterans themselves who came to Washington to meet with Senator Tester and with me and with every member of the United States Senate to have a conversation, to tell their story, and they are the most effective advocates there could be. And many of them and others testified before our Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. This legislation is not just a product of Senator Tester and I, it's a product of so many, it's so much more, and perhaps, no offense to Senator Tester, but perhaps our role is really insignificant when you look at the people who have encountered these challenges, but used those challenges as an opportunity to fight not just for themselves, but in most instances probably more likely to fight for other veterans in similar circumstances. I thank them for their service. I thank them for their work in helping us deliver long-lasting solutions, comprehensive reforms for those who served. And I especially want to thank Heath Robinson's family, who turned their own loss and heartache into action. This bill will help many veterans like Heath face the challenges that he faced that ultimately ended his life. I thank Senator Tester, the chairman of the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs, and for all the members of our committees, Republicans and Democrats. I remind my colleagues and I remind the American people that the original version of this bill passed the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee unanimously with every Republican and every Democrat voting yes. After the passage of that legislation, we worked further to find consensus, but more importantly, to find better solutions and a path forward that would allow us to be to the point we are today. Secretary McDonough deserves our gratitude as well, and I thank him for his input, his testimony, and the numerous times of telephone and personal conversations. I appreciate his advice, and it made this bill better for veterans. Once we pass this legislation, the real work of implementing it will fall to the Department of Veterans Affairs. But we as a committee and we as senators need to make certain that we do the appropriate oversight, that we make certain that this is not just words on paper, but the results that we're looking for is finally delivered. Too often, I think, the moment of glory comes on the passage of a bill or the press release announcing the passage of a bill, the signing of a bill. But whether or not it works still remains the most important aspect of our work. A lot of work remains, and the VA has significant challenges as it moves forward to help these veterans. The real work is still ahead of us, and I stand ready to do all I can to make certain that we're able to deliver the intended results contemplated by this legislation. A long list of thank yous to my colleagues, certainly to my colleagues in the committee, my colleagues in the Senate, but especially to folks in the VA community, the VSO community. Shane Learman, Lawrence Montreal, Shane is with the DAV, Lawrence is with the American Legion, Pat Murray with the VFW, Corey Titus, MOAA, Alex Morosky, WWP, Candace Wheeler, TAPS, Bob Carey, Independence Fund, Tom Porter, IAVA, Caitlin Hetrick, IAVA, Jennifer Birch, IAVA, Rosie Torres, Burn Pit 360, John Stewart and John Feel, and I thank the Kansas leaders who over a long period of time, I don't know what year it was, but the Vietnam Veterans of America held a conference in Wichita, Kansas, at which I attended, in which the topic was toxic exposure, and it has to be at least 10, 12 years ago, and I thank them for that, in that point in time, sticking in my mind that there's work to be done. And I appreciate other Kansans, Lee Hersey, who is the commander of the Kansas VFW, Jeremy Earhart of Kansas American Legion, William Turner, Eric Owens, Lee Taffanelli, David Dennis, General Mike Dodson, Pat Proctor, Paul Chapa, Colonel Timothy Millar, and Colonel John Buckley, all of whom are Kansans who are working on behalf of other veterans in our state to see that we get this right. And nothing in this body gets done because senators do all the work. Senators have ideas and occasionally a few words here and there, but we are surrounded by people who every day make those words and those thoughts come to life on a piece of paper called a bill. And my staff on the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee and in my office has been unending in their efforts to get this right and to work to find an agreement that could become law. Lindsey Deering leads that list, Asher Allman, Michelle Payne, Taffany Woolfolk, Emily Blair Rubrick, Kelsey Barron, Brian Newbold, Mark Crowley, Emily Brady, Brian Mann, David Sherman, and our leader, John Towers. And to Senator Tester, Tony McClain, his chief, and Simon Kuhn. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the Senate floor at this moment for what I hope will be a resounding victory, not for Senator Tester, not for Jerry Moran, but for the veterans of America who served our nation admirably, did what they were asked to do, and encountered things they should not have encountered that have lasted, the consequences of which have lasted throughout their lives. We're here to fulfill a commitment and a promise, and we begin that. We move forward on that today. I yield the floor.